This is L.W. Johnson. Welcome to another edition of the Foreclosure Show. And today we're going to demystify foreclosures, and we're going to pull back the curtains and give you guys something to be proud of, because let's face it, a lot of folks who are undergoing foreclosure, it's kind of like a little secret, and nobody wants, you don't want the other guys to know what you're going through, and people are hiding in the shadows, and they don't want the neighbors to know, and there's a lot of shame that people are feeling with regards to a foreclosure. But you know, we're going to pull back the curtain and let you guys know that there's nothing to be ashamed of. This is something that's happening to a lot of folks all across the country, thousands and hundreds of thousands, millions of people. And so we're going to give, today's lesson is going to be about what's the big deal. You know, we start with the equity. That's the first thing that you guys need to understand, because a lot of you guys are getting taken advantage of by folks who know more about your house or the value of your house than you do. So we're going to pull back the curtain on equity so that you guys could understand why foreclosures, why people are selling foreclosure lists, why people are talking about, there's such a big to-do about buying foreclosed properties, and it's all at your expense. It's all happening because of your expense. But nine out of 10 people who get foreclosed on don't even know what the big deal is, because you're struggling to pay your bills, to keep up with the mortgage. You bought a house, and all you know is you saved your money, and all of a sudden they're telling you, you're not able to keep up with the mortgage, and it starts to snowball, and all of a sudden you are getting foreclosure notices, and you don't really understand what's happening. So we're going to slow it down and go back to square one, which is equity. What is the big deal? Why are there so many vultures hovering around foreclosures and people that own properties that are falling on hard times, and give you a little bit of reason to smile, and give you a little bit of reason to have some pride in your situation, and not feel shame. Okay, so first thing we're gonna give you, you guys should probably get a pen and a pad just so you can write it down, or take notes, or rewind and replay, because we're going to be covering a lot. Anyway, so here's how it works, and here's why the foreclosure business is probably the number one business in real estate, because it's so many people are taking advantage of people who don't understand, and information is very valuable. So you're going to get a valuable lesson today in terms of the equity that and the reason why so many vultures are hovering around foreclosures, and people are selling foreclosure lists, and on and on and on. So we're going to start with that. And also, guys who are doing wholesaling are doing wholesaling at your expense. So we're going to, wholesaling we're going to cover on a whole show by itself, actually several shows. But today, let's get started with equity. Now, what is equity? When you buy a house, you save up your funds, and you end up buying a house for 5-10% down. That was back in the old days. Now you're going to have to save up a few bucks more because the banks got hurt, and now you're at 20%, somewhere in that neighborhood. So depending on where you are and what the program is, you've saved up X amount of dollars to qualify to get a house, to buy a house. And normally the bank, you're coming in somewhere around 20% with PMI, which is, if you're under 20%, they charge you PMI, and to make up the 20%, because that's where you're supposed to be. Anyway, bottom line, you put up 20%, even if you're under 20%, and then the bank has PMI that covers you to the 20% so that you meet the qualifications. So it's an 80-20. They got 80, you got 20, and you've got 30 years to pay off the 80. Okay? So you bought a house. Let's use a simplistic calculation. Let's say your house is worth 100 grand. You put up 20 grand, which is 20%, and your house is worth 100 grand. So you're living in the house, everything's smooth, then all of a sudden you hit a bump in the road and your finances are bumpy. Say, for instance, your value of your house is now 10 years later, 15 years later, value of your house is now sitting at 200 grand. Just for argument's sake, round numbers, okay? So you don't know what to do. You're worried. You don't know that you could call the bank. You don't know that you could have rights. You don't even know the value of your house, okay? So here's how the value works, and here's why there's so many sharks circling the waters with foreclosures. The value of your house, your equity, and your equity meaning what your house is worth minus what you paid. Okay, so you paid 100 grand, which you put up 20%, but forget the 20% for now, which you paid 100 grand for your house. Your house is now worth 200 grand. So that means you've got 100,000 minimum in equity. Okay, so you paid 100, it's 200, that's 100 minus 200. You're now sitting at 100 grand. In addition to that, you've got equity because you took 15 years of paying off or paying down the interest and the principal. Not a lot, but you've been paying off the interest. That is worth something, but we're not going to touch that for now. We're just going to deal with just the whole numbers, 100 grand minus 200 grand. So your house is worth 100 grand to you, your money, equity. The equity belongs to you. Not to the bank, not to anybody else. So your house, after 15 years, it's 200 grand, but it's now worth 100 grand to you. So if anything were to happen to your house, that 100,000 in equity that's above the purchase price, it's going to be more than that because you paid 15 years worth of principal, which knocked the value down. So you paid some of the equity going forward. So your house should be worth a little bit more to you in terms of your money, your vested interest in the house. But we're not going to deal with that right now because that's going to get a little bit too numbers, too muddy for numbers. We're just dealing with a simplistic example. Okay, so we're going to put that aside for now. And we're just going to deal with the straight numbers. So the house is worth $100,000 to you. That's the reason why people are flooding and flocking and circling foreclosures, is because there is money, real money, that's available to them. To you, but because you don't know that there is money. You just know that you lived in the house and you really can't fix anything because you're basically just hanging on, trying to make the payments, and you don't really know much about the numbers and how to make it work. So the equity in your house is now 100 grand. That's your money. If you were to do a refinance, you could take out the 100 grand and then your loan would restart, which in order to take out the 100 grand, you would need to requalify to take out the money. But let's set that aside, because if you're in foreclosure, refinancing is not an option for you because you're you've got to maintain a decent credit and all of that. And if you're falling on hard times, then you don't have that. That has been whipped off the table. So you've got $100,000 to you. If you get in trouble with the bank and say, for instance, you miss 2 payments, the bank is looking for their money. What is their money? The bank's money. The bank's money is the payments that you missed. The bank's money is not your entire house. The bank's money is only the payments that you missed. And if they've got to take you to court, their attorney fees and their underwriting fees and all of their fees that they're going to tack on to you. And you could read about it in your mortgage, but it's just going to be a bunch of a bunch of numbers. But you really should know what it is, because they tell you what it is that they're going to charge you. They're going to charge you their attorney fee. They're going to charge you fee to get the title and all of these things. So your equity now is going to be $100,000 minus the 2 months that you missed, plus their attorney fees and other miscellaneous fees, and in addition to that, any ongoing payments that you miss because they're going to stop taking your money in terms of your payments. So far, your equity is $100,000 minus 2 months payments, and say, for instance, your payments are $2,000 a month. So, well, actually, for $100,000, it's going to be probably less than that. But we'll just let's do $1,000 a month. So that's $1,000. That's $2,000 plus their attorney fees. It's probably another $10,000.